I think there is one, but I think it's not what I would call a discursive one. In other words, it's not one where we could say Confucius's overall view is X, and that explains why he'll say this about ritual and that about another topic, and that's what pulls it together. I think actually what pulls it together is it's a text trying to present a figure, namely Confucius, of course, doing in practice what it is he's arguing.
What sorts of things is he doing that they want to record?
People will always pick out this sort of obviously exciting philosophical statements from the Analects. And that's, of course, very important, but a great thing to do is look at Book 10. What Book 10 gives you is Confucius doing rituals. And literally by rituals, it will tell you how he walks into a room and straightens a mat before he sits on it, how high he will hold his elbows when he's talking to certain people of different ranks. And what I think that chapter is trying to do is to present Confucius as he lived his life. And then you add those to the various passages where he's talking to disciples and get a sense of why this mattered, why it was important to him to live his life this way, and what he thought he was gaining from it, and what he thought he was training his students to do. And only by looking at the whole text do you really get a sense of what that thread is.
Can we then go the next step and say, okay, if we can think about it well, we'll get a philosophy? Or is it really that Confucius himself might not be entirely sure he has a philosophy as much as he knows how he wants students to engage and to think?
Yes, and I think it is the latter, but maybe we should expand our vision of philosophy to include this. In other words, maybe what he's doing is in fact giving what we ought to call philosophy, but then philosophy would mean not simply some kind of rational set of rules, systematic thinking, that in this case philosophy would mean a way of life in which human beings, by following a certain path, can become incomparably greater human beings than they otherwise could have become. More humane, but also more responsive to situations, better able to respond to situations, better able to encourage and inspire those around them to be better human beings. And precisely because one couldn't lay out, or does not in the Analects be presented as laying out a systematic statement as to how to get that, it puts us in the position, of, as you said, of sort of working through it and doing what he wants us to do. And I think he's trying to get us on that path of doing it. And I would like to call that philosophy. It's simply a very expanded notion of what philosophy would mean.
It strikes me that also that what we're getting at is, at least if from the perspective of Mediterranean civilization, that what we're talking about is the humanities.
Yes.
As a mode of learning, right?
That
it always has to be reflecting back on the self.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that in fact is what we want to do. We want to ask you to follow along the path that Professor Pewitt has laid out for us and say, let's read the Analects with the idea of improving ourselves.